Hi gang, Starving Photographer here again, and today I'm going to show you how to quickly and with relative ease combine two separate images to create a soft bokeh and a more interesting background than you might otherwise be able to do with just a single image. So this is what we have to work with. You see three thumbnails here. This is just an iPhone shot of the scene in my backyard. These sort of bare tree branches with just a few buds over here, that's where the bird is going to be perched. And this background with the flowering tree, this beautiful pink blossoms, is the background that I want to incorporate into my shot. So this is just an idea of what exactly we're looking at and we're combining. So here is the bird in question. It's a beautiful little chickadee. This is taken with the Sony A9 and the 100 to 400 millimeter lens. And this is the background. The beautiful blossoms again with the 100 to 400 millimeter lens on the Sony A9. And I'm going to combine this image with this image to create a slightly more pleasing bokeh and overall color tone. So let's see how that's done. I'm going to select the two images that I'm interested in, which is basically this one and this one. I'm going to two-finger click or right-click and say Edit In, Open as Layers in Photoshop. And here we go. And here's the first layer of the file, and here's the second layer of the file. You notice the blossoms are on top of the chickadee. Okay? So it's very, very easy actually. What we're going to do is use this particular layer as the background, but since we're creating a bokeh effect, we're going to blur it out and then ease it into the layer of the bird. And let me show you how that's done. It's actually quite simple. First, I'm going to take this layer here, select it, and say blending mode from normal to overlay. Makes it look a little funny, doesn't it? So don't worry about that. I'm going to select that again and go Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And if you have the preview selected, it gives you an idea of what this image looks like. It's already looking great. And I typically put the pixel values or the radius pixel values between 20 and 100 or so. And for this particular image, I think I'm going to keep it at about 85. Which gives a hint of a pink background, okay, without letting it look too messy. So I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. We're not done because there's some bleeding into the chickadee, particularly the light areas. And this part you just have to go in and fix manually, and that's actually very easy to do because I actually like the little bit of pinkness that's conveyed to the overall image and to the chickadee, but I don't want it to make it look too obvious over here. So basically, I make sure that the top layer is selected. I create a mask like this, and I'm going to paint over this area. The brush tool is already selected. If it's not, just hit the B key, and then make sure that you're painting black on top of white. If this is not selected, or that these colors are different, just hit this button that defaults to black and white setting, and then I like to make sure the paintbrush is relatively big and soft, so I'm going to go up here and choose a size that's maybe a little bigger. Yeah, that's pretty good, maybe slightly bigger like that. And the hardness is about 50% or so. I'm going to try that, and I'm going to change the opacity to, let's say, 30% because I can go over the areas multiple times to achieve the effect I want. So this is the area I'm going to go over. As you notice, as I go over it, the pink is disappearing, but not completely. And you don't have to be super accurate because you can go over the areas over and over again until you get the effect you want. And the trick is just to get enough of it to make it look like it's reasonably what it should look like. You don't want to go 100% because you still want to convey a little bit of warmth, a little bit of bleeding of that pink color, if you will, onto the plumage of the chickadee. And I'm going to maybe over here, it's a little bit too much up here. And it's funny because you actually don't notice a difference until you go over the area with the brush. And again, I'm going to try to get rid of some of that pinkness because because it does look a little funny, but I want to maintain a little bit of that still. Again, at the edges here. And because it's an overlay and not a complete replacement of the colors, you know, the effect of the slight bleed, if you will, of the pinkness onto the bird actually has a very, very pleasing and natural appearance, because it's almost like some of the light from the pink is being reflected off the bird itself. And so I'm going to just go over that here a little bit. And, you know, that's actually looking pretty good. So let's just go through the history here. Here's the history panel. This is right after we blurred it and applied the overlay. And then this is after we did a few brushes, and it actually looks beautiful. And let's turn the layer off with the bokeh. So here's the original image. It's flat, it's okay, you know, but I think this is so much more pleasing with that subtle pink bokeh in the background. Very, very easy to do. Just take the background layer, blur it out, overlay it, and paint over the areas that are a little conspicuous. You notice I didn't do any painting over the branches or these little buds, because I think the overall pinkness to the area actually looks very, very good. And there you go. Here's the finished product. You can work on it later in Photoshop or in Lightroom to bring out some contrast, you know, change the overall clarity. But for the most part, you are done. So I'm going to File, Save, and this is now going to show up back into my Lightroom. So let me switch over to Lightroom right now. And here is that image right here. So just as before and after, here's the before, and here's the after. I think the after looks so much better. Still looks very natural to me. And then here I can do a little bit of adjustments with curves and contrast. I'm gonna bring up the overall exposure just a little bit, like so. And then I'm going to increase the clarity just a little bit, like so. And maybe increase the contrast. Okay, and I'm gonna selectively sharpen just this portion to bring a little pop back in the eye, and I'm going to look at it at 100%, and I'm going to sharpen, right, clear everything out by double clicking, increase the sharpness over here, maybe this much, and just lightly paint over that area. And if I'm not happy, I can always increase the sharpness a little more or a little less, and that actually looks very, very good. And overall, I think I'm going to increase the exposure here just a little bit, so because the black eye blends in a little bit too much with the black plumage. So I'm going to select that again, zero everything out, increase the exposure just a tad to maybe 7.5 or 8.3. Let's just see how that looks. Just a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to hit you over the head with it, just a little bit. So I think that actually looks great. So let's go back, and here's the overall final image. Again, before and after. I think the after image looks so much better. I hope you agree, and I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to see more videos to follow. Thank you very much.